Hello, it is Thursday, June 15th, 2017, and this is Marketing Live. I am your host, Amy Jorgensen. On today's live broadcast, we will be talking with video experts. In the age of mobile phones and social media, digital video is more important than ever, but producing quality video content doesn't have to be expensive or time-consuming. Our experts will share tips and tricks for filming, editing, scoring, publishing, and tracking video success. We'll hope you'll walk away with ideas and tools you can use right away in your work. Marketing Live is part of a Higher Ed Live network. Our episodes offer you direct access to the best and brightest minds in education. Be a part of our live broadcast by sharing your knowledge. Participate in today's discussion by tweeting us using hashtag HigherEdLive. All of our episodes are free and easy to access in the video archives at higheredlive.com, or take Higher Ed Live with you on the go by subscribing to the podcast. Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, a marketing and communications firm that works with education institutions on branding, digital, content, design, and more. I'd like to welcome our guest today. We have Jenny Boone, Public Relations and at Roanoke College. Welcome, Jenny.
Hi.
We're glad you're here. We have Diana Williams, digital editor and strategist for the Virginia Foundation for the Humanities. Welcome, Diana.
Hi.
Stumbled through that, my mistake.
That's okay.
We have Jim Goodwin, digital media producer and at Washington and Lee University. Welcome, Jim.
Hello.
We have Lee Graff, video producer at Shenandoah University. Welcome, Lee.
Greetings. Hello.
And we have Tiffany Broadbent-Becker, Director of Digital Media for University Advancement, and Lisa Crawford, Director of Video and Multimedia, both at the William and Mary University. Welcome.
Hello.
Oh, it's definitely Thursday. All right, so anyone who is watching, please do not hesitate to ask any questions by using hashtag HigherEdLive. I'll do my best to ask your questions as they come in, and I'm going to start off with a few questions of my own. So let's talk a little bit about some free tools that might exist out there. So are there any free and low-cost production and editing tools that you would recommend? Let's start off with Diana.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite subjects because especially being in higher ed, we are all balling on a budget. So one of my favorite tools actually comes as an application with my MacBook, and that's iMovie. It's so much better than previous versions, especially with your ability to cut your audio really well to get really quality cuts on it. So I use that quite a bit, even though I have other tools, especially for shorter videos. I like to just jump right on iMovie and throw something together. Animoto is also pretty good, and it does more like slideshows than video, although you can do video clips with it. It's no longer free, but it is still pretty low cost and easy to use. All of these are fairly user-friendly too. And then something that I've started playing with recently a lot is Adobe Spark. Now, it's free with the first 30 days if you don't already have the cloud. But if you have the cloud, then you can download the application and use it. And I love all of these tools for video productions and editing.
Very nice. Do any of the rest of you folks have any tips on any free tools that you use or low-cost tools?
If you could real quick tell me, what is Adobe Spark?
It's pretty new, and it's you can do web pages with it. You can do video again, and I've done like little microsites for presentations. The video, I will say this about the video tools, it's good if you're not trying to tell a specific story. So let's say you just want to do a general marketing piece. It's great for being able to grab stock photography, stock video clips. They have a great music library, so you can throw together something short, but it's not going to be very targeted. So I wouldn't recommend it, again, if you're trying to tell a specific story, but it's great if you're just trying to do something for like social media that you need to just, spread the word about your brand.
It's also one of these things that it's filled with a lot of templates and things like that that make it very easy to put pieces together and very quickly put together a small little piece that's not necessarily specifically like if you nuance you want to edit something down, but it can be very quick at doing what it does.
Absolutely.
Very nice. Any other free tips you guys know about? All right, great. I like that. Have you guys seen any animation tools out there that you like? I mean, obviously we can't go all full out on Maya and having really big production tools, but are there things out there that you do like that are low in cost or that you have used in the past, even if they are costly, that you think have worked well?
I can give a quick idea of something that you can find for Final Cut. I really like to use a site called Pixel Film Studios, which other people may be familiar with, and they've got some very easy to use animation tools within it, and they cost about $30 to plug in, so not terribly expensive. Can give that piece that little bit of extra production value that makes it seem more expensive and higher profile if you need it.
We over here, we haven't really used it yet. We've just started playing with it. Is with the Adobe suite, there's a character animator that, using a camera like the one I'm looking at, it identifies your face and you create a character and it will animate it on how you move and talk, animate it automatically, which is really kind of cool. We haven't used it in anything we've put out there yet. We've just started playing with it, but it's really cool.
It's going to end up being that you're doing the whole Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, you're going to have a little raccoon running around. And
if I could work on that level, that'd be awesome.
Very cool. So when it comes to actually producing something and putting something together, do you have any production tips and interview tips to make sure that you're being as efficient as possible?
I can share some if you like. Mine are more along the lines of interview tips. I've done a lot of different interviews. They've been longer interviews, kind of sit-down interviews, or interviews kind of, you know, person on the street kind of things where you're covering events on your campus. But one of the things I think is really helpful is to meet the interviewer or interviewee before you interview them if you're having a sit-down, because that makes them feel more comfortable with you and you want them to be comfortable on camera. So if you have a chance to just, like, you know, go by and say hello to them, introduce yourself before the actual interview, you don't look like you're not a stranger to them. A few others, I definitely suggest that people know their talking points for whenever they're, for whatever interview they're doing. Specifically if you're kind of out on campus, maybe interviewing people for just an event that's happening, because sometimes it's good to know what you want to get out of the interviews, because you want to know what message you're trying to send with the video. So for example, at Reno College, we have had some political candidates visit the campus in the past year, and we knew we didn't want the videos to be about a certain political stance. So in order to do that, we thought about the kinds of questions we wanted to ask. We wanted it to be kind of more about the student experiences and what they thought about meeting the candidates. So that was kind of where we triggered our questions and like talking points too when we were interviewing them. One other thing about questions is I think you should prepare questions ahead of time, but don't just stick to them, obviously, because the person might say some things that you really want to jump into and include on the video. So don't be afraid to go off your question list and just be, just kind of be open to listening to what they're saying. Two other tips I would suggest is, one, your video editor will love you if you can aim for succinct sound bites when you're interviewing people. So just try to listen for those. There are definitely a lot of long-winded interviewees, and so make sure that you can make your questions work for them, or go back and ask it a different way, or say, I really enjoyed your answer here, but could you say that in one sentence or two sentences, and see how well they can kind of dial that back a little bit, because that helps your video, the editor, along with just the people watching the video in the long run, because that's the better audience for shorter answers. And then another thing too, we found at Reno College is that when you're doing like an interview of like a one-on-one interview, a lot of times we might want to introduce the person, but a lot of times it's good to introduce that person or have them introduce themselves after you've already interviewed them, because they sound more comfortable. So for example, they say, "Hi, I'm Jenny Boone and I'm an English major," but they might sound much better doing that after the interview is over, over. So a lot of times we actually have the introduction happen, and then we just obviously edit it to be it at the beginning, but they just sound so much more comfortable because they've already sat there and chatted with you. So those are just a few suggestions I have. Obviously, always be friends with your video editor and your videographer. If you're the interviewer, make sure you guys have a good working relationship, because you're going to be working pretty closely together, and you want to make sure you get, that you have the same goals in mind. So that's always helpful. Any other thoughts are welcome.
That's smart. Are you guys doing any storyboards or other stuff like that? I think Lee, you're still muted.
Yeah, I'm not now. I was going to say, on the other end of the long-winded answer is to avoid the yes or no or the one-word answers, because they're not any fun either, because you don't get anything with them. So we always tell people at the beginning of an interview that, that if we ask you a question, restate the question as part of the answer. What is your favorite color? The answer is not blue. It's my favorite color is blue.
Right,
you want to get them to talk.
Yeah, that makes sense. So are you guys developing storyboards and putting other stuff like that together, so that way you're going in as prepared as possible? And, how are you making sure that before you go in, you're not wasting any time at all? I mean, do you guys have checklists of here's what equipment I need on the day of?
We do that depending on the video. I'll say that. Because we have certain videos that we pre-plan months in advance. We have a meeting in about a week for our Christmas video for this year. Trying to be about 6 months out on that, because we're shooting it throughout the year with things about, hey, it's we always feel that spirit throughout the year, so we need to shoot it when there's green leaves on the trees. Not shooting it in November when everything's brown. So that involved some pre-planning and doing that. But other times when we go out to shoot an event, we don't know exactly what that event's going to look like, so we just have to shoot it as we go, almost news style. So it kind of depends.
I agree. I think it just depends on the kind of video you're looking for, and also just how much time you have to do it, because some video shoots can be days and you have a lot of equipment and you're setting up in different areas. And then as Lee said, when you're just doing kind of on the spot interviews, you mostly just kind of know, like, you're going to have your video, your video person. Actually, in Everett College, we also use Snapchat as kind of a video interviewing tool. And so we usually have like a Snapchatter and then a video person and then an interviewer. We have like kind of a team. You just kind of walk around together. I feel like you're improvising there.
That's a good point. Great. So let's talk a little bit about some live video tools. So you talked a little bit about Snapchat. I think some of the folks over at William & Mary have some good tips on that. So why don't you fill us in a little bit about what you're doing with live video and making sure that you're as efficient and productive as possible?
Yeah, so William & Mary has done probably a good handful of Facebook Live videos now. We live streamed convocation, commencement this past year. We've done, when we had our commencement ceremony last year, the Face the Nation came and interviewed our Chancellor, Bob Gates. And so right after that, we had the opportunity to interview the host of Face the Nation. And that was one of our first Facebook Lives that we did. But the things that we learned from doing that, like that interview was in the Wren building, which is a super old historic building, and all of the glorious quirks that go along with that of the Wi-Fi isn't great because it's all brick and you don't really get a very good cell signal in there. So the thing that we learned from that, I was running an Ethernet cable from like a supply closet across the floor and then used my laptop as a base station to set up that as the Wi-Fi that was then dedicated to just my phone doing that live stream. But testing is like the biggest lesson that we've learned from all of this, is like, either you can test from your personal account or you can test and create a test page on Facebook, but to just make sure that the lighting's okay, the sound's okay, your internet works and is appropriate, and just pretty much doing a complete dry run of that entire video that you want to do beforehand. It's, and sometimes you've learned we can't do a Facebook Live here. It won't work because usually the internet isn't fast enough. And then Facebook won't even let you start it, but which is like, no, really, I would love to do this. And they're like, sorry, the video, your internet connection is not fast enough to support this. But for that interview that we did in the Wren building, I was just holding my phone on top of a tripod and just like hoping that it wouldn't fall over. sit and it's like, oh yes, we can get a stand for an actual, for a phone that would work a lot better. But one of the other tools that we've used, I guess this could have gone in the free tools section, was OBS software. So it's a free download and it works as sort of a video kind of aggregator. So you can have just one stream that's either the camera that's on your laptop, or it can be a feed in from a proper video camera, or multiple feeds from a proper video camera. And you can kind of cut the different video feeds together and have sort of a very professional look and feel with multiple camera angles. You can preload videos in. So if you want to have sort of like an intro video before you start off, we did that for our homecoming parade last year. We showed a couple of alumni-related videos to kick it off while people were waiting for the parade to start. So it's a really great tool. It integrates pretty easily with Facebook. You don't have to buy any software with it, and has been a really great tool.
Can you explain a little bit about how you're pulling stuff in? So when you have all of these different, cameras, are you, are they all like cloud-based that you're getting everything organized, or are you like, they all have to be linked in one computer? Like, could you do a drone that's up in the air? Like, how is it all put together?
The ones that we've done have been where it's directly wired into your computer, but we were talking before this episode about somebody else that got to use a drone, so I will let them talk about that, because that sounds awesome.
Well, that was us here at Shenandoah University during our commencement ceremony. The graduates have to walk about halfway across the campus to the tent, and I'm pretty sure it was Facebook Live, but I could be wrong on this. I had other responsibilities at the time, but we funneled the feed from a Phantom drone through a system. We had to set up hotspots all along campus, along the route, so that we didn't have an interrupted system, so that the parents in the tent could see the students on their way to there. But it took a few days of planning and testing and making sure that the hotspots were where they needed to be and worked. So.
One of the things we have in our office is like just a little hotspot that you can use when you travel and stuff like that. I almost would want to take that and just zip tie it to the to the drone and have it just fly around. I don't know if that would work at all, but all right, what are you saying, Jim?
I can't imagine that would work. The payload would be too much. It would start flying all over the place. But something to think about when doing live events, if you're at the point where you're using the camera on your computer, or you trying to hold your phone still, you might want to just sink a little bit of money into it. There are things like the Livestream Mevo. I don't know if anybody is familiar with the Mevo. It is a tiny little 4K camera. And all you need is that, which can go to Livestream or to Facebook Live, and your phone or an iPad, which you likely have in the office, where you can actually set it up so that you have different crops within that 4K frame. You've got this one little $400 camera that looks like you have 4 cameras.
Nice.
So you could have it in front of, let's say, a panel discussion. You could have tight shots on all 4 panelists. You could have a wide shot. And you could do the production from there. It can take an audio in. So if you've got somebody who can maybe run sound for you, you can plug it in. You can do it Wi-Fi, or you can do it wired. So there are other kind of cheap cameras that would be preferable to using a phone, or an old camera that you've got lying around the office. So if you're just getting into this, it's a low-cost barrier, easy entry into being able to do live events. There's also things like this, which is a DJI Osmo, which is very similar to what you'd find on a drone. And this can go direct as well, and gives you the flexibility of, let's say, we might not be flying over commencement, but we could walk through commencement. You could actually walk down the way, maybe like kind of following the people or something like that. So this can also go live to Facebook and to Livestream and other providers.
And that's so much more smooth. Like, I'm going back in my mind to like being in high school a million years ago, when we had like a person standing on a skateboard as we push them really slowly, and they're holding the camera trying to get that sweeping shot. Like, I mean, just investing a little bit of money, it has such a big difference.
And so we got this specifically to be able to give to students, so that students can give us footage we can use, which is great.
That's really smart. So what other kind of tools are you using? Talk a little bit about the cameras and and lighting and things like that? Because I don't think that's something we've addressed. You know, what is your preferred tool?
We use Canon XA25s, which in my research at the time where we purchased them, was the cheapest camera with a length control, which essentially lets you zoom on a tripod handle rather than trying to do it on a camera, because that's never as smooth. And also HD SDI right there, which will give you longer cabling options, things like that. So we use these. They're not terribly expensive, and if you go through B&H, you get your educational discounts, all that kind of fun stuff. So that's the cameras we prefer to use. And also, they work really well in low light. I think they've got a new model out of essentially this camera, which you can also pick up. But we really like those. I'd be interested to know what other people are using.
Yeah, what are you guys using?
Go ahead.
At William & Mary, we're using we have two C100s, Sony FS700, and we're hoping to switch to the new Panasonic GH5s just because they're a much smaller system for us to be taking, but still gives us the quality of video that we like. And then we've got our drone, our Phantom 4 Pro. But those are the cameras that we use right now. They work really well. They look really good. Interchangeable lenses, so that's what we love about them. The C100s have that wonderful neutral density filters that are built into the camera that are very helpful. The GH5s, when we hopefully move to that, won't have that, but that's what lens filters are for. So that's what we're working with right now.
At Shenandoah University, we're using primarily DSLRs to shoot most of our video with, Canon 6Ds at this point in time. Although we're beginning our discussion and looking at the new fiscal year at picking up maybe some different cameras, even some that are more traditional video-like. We have this one Panasonic 4K camera, and we've begun shooting a few things with that. But not terribly much because, doggone it, we just like the look that DSLRs give when you shoot. But we have a variety of things that we use. Some action type stuff with students. We have some of the new GoPros. With our athletic center that's going up right now, we have 3 of these little time-lapse cameras that are constantly rolling on the construction going right now. We have to change out batteries or cards on them about every 3 weeks or so. But it's produced some really neat looking stuff as the building rises up out of the ground. And we just use a whole variety of things. We even use our iPhones in a pinch.
Hey, you say that, but like I have a Google Nexus, and it's a beast, but I get some of the best video on this stuff because it does, you know, if you need something really quickly and you're doing something live, sometimes that's easier than having to run back and grab, if you're in the moment. Of course, you want to try and plan better, but.
I was going to say, same. I use my phone a lot. I've got a Samsung Galaxy S7, but I also have a DSLR. So it kind of depends on the situation. I use a Nikon D3200, which is a little bit older, but has a surprisingly good built-in microphone. So I very rarely have to use the shotgun if I'm pretty close to my subject, which is nice because it means less equipment to lug around.
That's a really, really good point. Yeah, you don't have to bring a whole bunch of stuff. I've also found, I think it's Cowboy something or other. They have lighting kits on Amazon for like $100, and you get 3 or 4 really great lights. It's cheap, and you really don't have to go spend a fortune if you don't have the money to just get lighting kits, or even some of the microphones you can get, under $100 and get something that's decent enough to serve its purpose. So, all right, great. So let's talk a little bit. I think that Jim kind of highlighted on this for a moment. Let's talk about music, because even listening right now, it would be so much better with music in the background. So Jim, what kind of music tools and stuff are you using?
So.
Sing for us.
I'm going to tweet out a link here of a small shared Google Doc. My intention was that people would actually visit it and add to it from my last presentation at a conference, but that has not happened. Something that I do want to highlight, which has been clarified to me even more since this past conference, is the fact that licenses are very different depending on who you are licensing from. And one Creative Commons license that lets you do non-commercial, no derivatives synchronization will still consider you commercial, no matter if you are asking for money or not and you work for an institution. We would always pay the commercial licensing essentially whenever we're doing like an annual fund ask or something like that. But if you're doing a short news piece or a time-lapse video of students running around or something like that, then you're not really kind of considering it a commercial piece. But the fact that you work for a university and get paid a salary makes it commercial. So that complicates trying to find genuine free music. And while I do have some suggestions on the link that I just tweeted out, and it's bit.ly, I can say it out here too. It is bit.ly CC Music Resources. So you can check that out. But I really have come to the realization that I am not going to try to look for free music anymore. There are some options here, but I've exhausted it. Of course, people can go to Free Music Archive. That has a great search function, which really lets you try to find the public domain stuff that you might know you can use. But even people, you really just have to kind of dig even further than Free Music Archive. It's not going to give you the correct license agreement. If you go to Poddington Bear and you take a look at his license on his website, you find out that, oh, all right, so anybody, if you accept a salary, you're no longer non-commercial. And thus you have to pay $15, which is not a ton of money, but it is something to take into consideration. What I've actually turned to recently is a website called artlist, ARTLIST.io. And the nice thing about that is that it's $200 for the year. And I have actually been quite impressed with their offerings. A lot of the subscription level ones that I've found are much more expensive and have less interesting stuff. And this is great search functionality for mood, for style, for duration, for tempo, all that stuff. I've been infinitely impressed. I figured if I could get one song out of it to start with that I thought was good, then it was essentially paying for itself, because anytime that we have to license something and we go through MusicBed or something like that, at minimum it's $180.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at, this could be one song for MusicBed. If I can find one song in here, and fantastic. And I've been very pleased. I've probably used 10 songs already.
Would you repeat the name again? I missed the name.
It's artlist, ARTLIST.io. And it's fantastic. I have been so pleased. So that is kind of a revelation for me in the past 2 months or so. I've been very, very impressed. And again, there is free music out there. I feel like when you start looking for free music, it can take up your entire day. It can be,
yes.
you can edit the entire video and then be like, well, I've got 2 days left to find a song.
and then the worst part is when your client decides they don't like the music that you spent all day fine, or sometimes 2 days, sometimes 3 days because nothing's working. But just to add to the list, all the music that we purchase as well. We use audiojungle.net, pond5.com. We've used MusicBed a few times. We've run into a few issues with MusicBed just because there are a few songs that it wasn't clear, at least when we purchased it, that if we posted it to YouTube, it would run ads. So you just have to be a little bit careful with that, especially if you don't want those ads to run.
So I think you can adjust that. All you have to do is they're gonna flag it within your YouTube account, and then there's a process you can go through where you can upload the license that you got from MusicBed, and that'll take off the advertising. Yes, you can, and I've had that issue with Audio Jungle before, and we just copy the license agreement, put it into YouTube, takes it off. But there was one incident with MusicBed where it was just like this really fine print that we didn't notice at the time, and the artist was very specific, or I'm not sure if it was the artist or if it was MusicBed, but it was something in there. So you just have to be careful for the fine print that says even something so specific as if you post this on YouTube,
it may run ads. So that's just one thing that we ran into. But yes, absolutely. If you have the licensing agreement, oftentimes if you copy and paste that right into YouTube, it is no longer a problem.
Yeah,
Well,
we've also used songfreedom.com as another resource. It's not too expensive for their songs. Some of them are more than others, and it depends on the artist, really. But one thing, we did run into an issue with one song where the guy just absolutely didn't want his piece of music used with, I don't know, education or something. And we eventually just dropped it and said, fine, we're not going to use it. But I ended up in a whole conversation with the president of Song Freedom on the phone, talking, and he talked about fair use type stuff. And he basically said that fair use comes down to whatever the artist says it is. If they're willing to let you use the music, you're good. If they don't want you to use it, then it ain't going to happen.
That's a really good point. And I like that you guys were talking about purchasing music, and not just in that, like, it is important to purchase music so that we are giving the person credit and you're not just stealing something, but also because it takes so much time to go through and sort through the junk that's out there for free. And half the time it's not even worth it. You know how weird it is when you hear other videos that are using your same song and it doesn't have the same feel, and after editing all day long or weeks long and then hearing that somewhere else, and it's just like it doesn't have that authenticity that you want. It comes across cheesy and cheap. So sometimes that just $200 makes a huge difference to be able to get something that's quality and that you can put out there. And if you look at the amount of time that you're spending searching through music and trying to find it and make sure it's the right fit and make sure the timings work and all of that, at a certain point, just spend the $200, get something that you know is going to be awesome and unique, and it outweighs the benefits outweigh the costs. So.
And I will add too, with some of the resources that we use. So Audio Jungle, most of the time is only, you're looking at $15, $19.
Awesome.
So it's not a huge expense. For Pond 5, it ranges, but they give you an opportunity to pick what your price range is. So you can, as you're searching through, you can look through duration as well as price range. So because they have stuff that goes into the hundreds of dollars, but they also have things that are $12, and you just have to pay attention to what that price is.
I think that's a really good point. So let's jump in a little bit about analytic tools, because when it comes to doing all of these things and how are you making sure that your videos are actually being watched and how long they're doing that. So Lee, I think you might be the expert in that.
Well, I'm a self-proclaimed expert, not really. We here at Shenandoah, we started using, we put all of our videos on YouTube that go out to the public. And when we do that, I've started in the last couple of years tracking those. I've created my own spreadsheet. YouTube has a fantastic set of analytic tools, but it doesn't tell you everything. So we had to pull the numbers from the website, from YouTube, put them into a spreadsheet, and that's where we start dividing things out. We track all of our videos in terms of, okay, this video is a profile of a former student or a current student or a professor. It's a profile video. Here's a video about events. Here's just a pure promotional piece about the university or some program or something. And we break those down into what type of videos, even who produces them, to what time of year they are, and we track them, which ones do better than other ones. And we use all that information to decide, to make decisions about what future videos we produce. For example, we do a move-in day video every year. It's one of our most watched videos of the entire year. Huge numbers the first day it's put out, and it tracks real well for the rest of the year. So we know, okay, that's a video that we're going to do. There's a few other videos, I won't mention specifically what they are, but we've put them out there, and after a month, it's gotten 12 views. And we realized, well, dang, that was hardly worth our time and effort. So maybe we're not going to do that video next year, for this event that comes around. And so we use the information to steer how, what videos we're going to produce, which ones we're not going to, and even what types of video, profile videos, promotional videos, or whatever. Profile videos, actually, no one really they don't care that much. And the question becomes, is it how we do them that we don't make them interesting enough, or is it just profile videos don't do it for people?
Well, and then it's not your opinion as to whether or not the video is good or bad. It's all about the numbers. You know what I mean? It's like you can think the video is amazing, it's really interesting, but it's like, hey, just people aren't watching it.
Yeah, it becomes very apparent that this video, I mean, I'll say I've put out a few things that I thought were awesome, and it just didn't do anything. No one cared, and it became a question. I mean, why is it? I mean, is it just my awesome isn't that awesome, or is it a matter that we just put out our commencement video this year, and one thing we noticed is I was tracking much lower than previous years, and we just figured out in the last couple of days that we had forgotten to produce a letter from the president where the video is embedded into it. And we had done that the last couple of years, and we didn't do it this year. And we noticed, oh my gosh, we lost, half of our views because we didn't do this one thing. But we picked up on it because the video numbers were running so much lower than normal. So we use that information to track things, figure out why things are happening the way they are or not, and so forth. And like I said, YouTube has a lot of great tools for that, but we've had to create our own spreadsheet where we pull the information and get to manipulate the information in a way that tells us more than even YouTube does.
What information are you measuring? Are you measuring just how many people have viewed it? Are you measuring the length in which they viewed it?
All that. We track not only how many views, but how long the videos get watched. So we watch the percentage of videos. We find out, it makes sense. We put out a 30-second video. We can pretty much guarantee that 90% of that video on average gets watched, because people don't have time to turn it off. It's only 30 seconds long. But we can put in a 6-minute video, and if their average is that people are watching it 60% of the video, we feel pretty good about that. Because in any video, you're never going to reach that 100%, because there's always going to be those people who click on a video, it starts, they get 5 seconds into it, and they're like, oh, that's not what I wanted, stop. So, but we feel pretty good about those. The interesting thing is that we have found that the videos that get watched the most for us, the ones that generate the most hits, aren't the shortest videos. They are videos between 4 and 6 minutes long. And actually, the length of time that people watch videos over the last 5 years has been gradually increasing every year. I think conventional thinking is that shorter videos are better, but yet the length of time that people watch them has been increasing for the last 5 years. Every single year, the amount of time that people spend time watching them has gotten longer. And the longer videos actually get watched more often.
As long as they're interesting, they'll watch them.
Yeah, but was kind of a surprise to us, because we were thinking go shorter, and actually the trends aren't going that direction. It really kind of surprised us when we started looking at the numbers over the last 5 years.
Well, this is a beautiful transition. We have a question from Eric Healy. Thank you, Eric. He's curious about the average video length for each of the panelists. So what are some of the subjects that you have? And, how long are you making these videos? Because that's something they're always discussed. Like in the departments, how long should they be making their videos? So let's start off with Diana. How long are your videos typically?
Well, it really depends. So I work for a history podcast, and so a lot of the videos that we make are either about a moment in history, or we're taking something from the show and we're building visuals around it. Our goal is 30 to 60 seconds, though, because even though our show is never dry, I mean, after a while, you're like, okay, next. So unless the story really warrants it, ultimately the goal is to tell the story and to tell it in an engaging way. So every once in a while, we did a video on the displaced residents, the residents who were displaced for Shenandoah National Park. That video was I think it was close to 2 minutes, but it was also it was our most successful video on social media. But because the story just couldn't be told in a minute or less. And our live streams, we don't really, it depends on whether we get through all of the questions, how many audience questions we decide to take. Typically, they're never more than 30 minutes. And then we also live stream our live shows. They tend to be like 90 minutes. But on average, 60 seconds is where we top out.
That's great. Thank you. Jenny.
I would say it does depend on the kind of video you're doing, but we found that I think the magic amount of time is about 2 minutes or less, depending on what we're doing. If it's a like more of a profile kind of interview with like a student or someone, that usually would maybe go to about 2 minutes. But anything that is more kind of a quick coverage, like on campus type thing, we would definitely try to keep it under 2 and probably close to like 1.5 maybe. So that's the general guide.
Thanks, Jim.
So we have to make a compelling argument to go over 5 minutes normally. But it always depends on what we're trying to do. If it's supposed to be a quick thank you, then we're not trying to keep you there for a long time. But if it's about a program, then that's usually a little bit more substantial. And that's also something that might get played on a digital sign in the building that we're talking about. So we kind of have a little bit more of a captive audience who might be standing around to watch it. So those can go a little bit longer. But things that we are specifically making for Facebook, we've been doing these little quick hit videos about student experiences and different events on campus. And those are 1 minute to 2 minutes.
Excellent. Lee?
Well, I can say I pull up my analytics sheet here. I'm looking, and
I love he's using the data.
I'm looking right at. The funny thing is that when you compare things between how long someone watches the video, the average percent viewed, compared to how many times they're being watched, our target range we're finding is about 2.5 minutes. That's where the lines kind of cross between how often someone's watching a video and then how long they're watching it. They cross at about the 2.5 minute, and most of our videos are actually put out in the 2 to 4 minute realm. So we're generally hitting that area.
Wonderful. Thank you. What about our wonderful experts from William & Mary?
Well, I think it really just depends on like everyone else said, what the video is and how best to tell your story. We have a lot of videos that we produce for events that end up as social media posts. So those are typically a little bit longer, ranging in the 2 to 3 minute time frame. If we know we're posting something specifically to social media, then we usually keep it a little bit shorter. So for example, we have what's called the William & Mary 30, which are supposed to be just 30-second videos to showcase something around campus in 30 seconds. And then we have our William & Mary Now series, and that can range to, up to 2 minutes usually, but nothing longer than that. But it just depends. Recently, we had a commencement video that profiled 3 students. That video was 4.5 minutes, and it was sent primarily through direct emails to some of our donors, and that got 1,500 views on YouTube, and that was without the social media post at all. So it just depends on where it's going and what you think your audience is going to actually be interested in watching as well.
That's also a really good transition. We have a question from Chris Swingle Farnham, who wants to know, do your videos live mostly on YouTube? How are the audience getting to see them? So something other than social media. And do you have any thoughts about the pros and cons of colleges putting videos on your college websites, pulling them from YouTube? Let's jump in with Lisa again.
I mean, I think for William & Mary, I mean, we'll put them pretty much everywhere. They sort of, the repository is YouTube, but I mean, you always want to make sure to natively upload it to Facebook. And if that's something that you can cross-post with other pages, so at William & Mary we have the Alumni Association and the top level William & Mary page, and our news folks also have a Facebook page. So we make sure that any of the videos that we're posting are available to cross-post, and that allows you to aggregate all of those stats so you can actually see more holistically. It wasn't just, the 5,000 people that viewed it on my page, it was also the 10,000 people that viewed it on the main William & Mary page and things like that. So it's a good way to get a better grasp of how the video was received. We'll natively upload it to Twitter if it's short enough. Sometimes we'll do or Instagram videos, but
As long as it's 60 seconds or less.
yeah, it's like you just keep compressing the time more and more. But embedding videos, we'll do that definitely for live streams when we do commencement or convocation or anything like that, and we want to make sure that if we're not doing it on Facebook Live, or if we're doing it on Facebook Live and a YouTube live stream, that there is a page that people can go to, so that we can just kind of direct everybody there, shows them the hashtag that they should use if they're posting on social media, and kind of provide one central spot for folks to go. So I think embedding the videos, I mean, you can embed Facebook videos now too on a web page. So depending on where you want to go with that, those are all different options.
Yeah, I think what we, just to add to what Tiffany was saying, what we've learned about our audience is that they're mostly watching our content through social media or direct links from emails. So they're not just randomly going to our YouTube page to see any of our content. So the YouTube views that we are getting, we know it's because we sent it in an email, or because it's sitting on a website that gets a lot of hits. But yeah, if we see that our YouTube numbers are going up, it's because we know that that was a featured video in an email. Outside of that, then we're mostly primarily on our social media channels, Facebook being the largest.
Yeah, the only YouTube channel that I go to often is Lip Sync Battle. But other than that, like, you know, I think you're exactly right. Most people are kind of going around and playing around and see what gets sent to them. They're not going specifically to one area. Does anyone else have anything different in how you're, you know, where you're posting your information and putting in stuff? I think, you know, at the University of Virginia, at least for my department, we do the exact same thing. We share the content in as many different platforms and as many different ways as we can, because I think increased exposure is nothing but good. You know, I think you're exactly right.
We also use, we upload our videos to Vimeo as well. So we have direct links to our Vimeo page on the main website, along with the YouTube channel. So it kind of, you can go either way, but a lot of times those are used as embedded links into, you know, news stories or things on the website. But it really, it's like what the others said, pretty much everything is pushed out via social media, and that's how people are finding it. And then it's linked to all these different areas where they can find it.
Yeah, and as long as it's relevant content, I don't see why it couldn't be shared on, you know, your university web pages and things like that.
And so we use, sorry, you can go, Lee.
Well, I was just going to say, we use YouTube as our primary upload place for all our videos, although we have begun using Vimeo for videos kind of that are not directly for public consumption. Every so often, you know, we're going to thank a particular donor or a donor's family for something, and we're starting to put videos there because it can provide a better link that doesn't, while you can put a unlisted or private video on YouTube, it skews all of our numbers in our analytics, because you get this video that's only been viewed 10 times, and it pulls all of our numbers down, and it's like, come on. Yeah. Can we do something different with the ones that aren't going out to the public? And so we've begun using Vimeo for things like that.
Yeah, we use Vimeo as our primary source. YouTube is for things that we wouldn't mind people finding in search. Anytime that we do anything for the annual fund or something like that, then that's going into Vimeo. It might be in a hidden link, or, you know, private link or something along that nature. I also prefer Vimeo because you're not going to get the advertising. So anytime that we put an embedded video on our webpage, we don't have. Then, you know, we'll do it Vimeo and we won't have any ads. And you also can't control what ads get played on your video. And I mean, we've had ads come onto YouTube that then people have told us that they were offended by, and we're like, well, you have nothing we can do about that. And it's also very nice. Vimeo is nice in that we don't want to be producing Blu-rays and DVDs of graduation. So I can check the box that says let them download it. And it's super easy to let them download it. I go, you can download your copy off Vimeo, and I don't have to waste my time making a bunch of DVDs.
And also, who's using DVDs anymore? You know what I mean? Like, it's like no one collects that stuff anymore. People much would prefer to be in the cloud.
Sure. Yeah, and I like Vimeo for that, for sure.
I still buy Blu-rays.
I buy records, I buy Blu-rays, I like the physical object. So I'm not one to talk about it.
I definitely do it because like the cover art's pretty cool, but honestly, it sits on a shelf. And then like I'll have the movie up on the shelf and I see it in Netflix. I'm like, oh, I might as well watch that. Like that, I forgot that I own that and I love that movie. I should watch it. But that's just me being lazy. Well, and I'd love to ask real quickly the wonderful experts from William and Mary. You talked a little bit about your strategy when it came to content development and leveraging surveys. Could you highlight a little bit on that?
Sure. I think one example of that is we recently, it was about a year ago, we did a survey that was for our alumni audience, specifically about the magazine that we produce. So there was a presentation about what that survey put, and my team was sitting there, and it was interesting how some of the content that they wanted to see in the print magazine we thought would translate well to social media. And one of the things they talked about was, you know, our William and Mary alums have a lot of pride, and they like knowing what the other William and Mary alums are up to. What are things they can brag about that are that's happening on campus, like from research to any traditions, to what other alums are doing. So we took that information and we said, you know what's kind of popular right now on social media? Those Now This videos. So we created what we call the WM Now, and it's really just a short glimpse at something for us to kind of brag about. So one of our most recent ones was a WM Now on Glenn Close. We actually had an opportunity to do a Q&A with her for a William and Mary weekend we did in New York. Well, she's on Sunset Boulevard right now. So
it's so cool.
We took that opportunity because we were getting the footage for another video, and we said, let's take this footage and do a highlight of Glen Close, Sunset Boulevard, and William and Mary. So we did that, and recently we have an alum, a young alum, a class of 11, Caitlin Clements, who's a co-producer for Dear Evan Hansen. And we called her earlier this week. We said, hey, congratulations on the Tonys. Could we do a quick phone interview and make a short video about that? It's not been released yet, but it's just an opportunity to, one, take footage that you're already getting, and you know those little interview segments that you can't use, how can you turn that into something that might be newsworthy for your audience on social media? Because I think, well, the first one we did, we were interviewing William Ivy Long. It just happens that all my examples are theater people, but I promise we have more than just that. But William Ivy Long was doing the costumes for the live Rocky Horror Picture.
Cool.
So we were interviewing him for something completely different, but we had this one nugget of the interview that we just loved the quote. And we were like, well, where can we use this? Throw it on social media. We packaged it as a promotional piece for Rocky Horror Picture Show and put it up. So it's a way for us to kind of brag about our people, use content that we're already getting and use it quickly. So, and also sometimes you don't have to have the same production value for social media, for just a short social media like that you would for most of the things that we produce. So that's an example of how a survey directly influenced our social media strategy, and how also just trying to utilize content in other ways can impact what kind of video series we start doing.
And the other thing with this is that we were definitely inspired by like what content is popular right now. How are people watching video on social media? And a lot of the time they're on their phones without the sound on. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of these videos are much more sort of graphic intensive and have more words on them, so you can watch it without the sound and still get the gist of what's going on. Mm-hmm. So that's been a great thing. Like Facebook Live now has closed captioning options and stuff, so that opens up a whole new world for that. But you know, for the produced videos, having something where you don't necessarily need to have the captions on to be able to understand what's going on is really important and can help like grab your audience's attention as they're scrolling through their feeds.
That's an excellent point. Well, I'd like to thank you all so much for all of your expertise. I think we're at time now. So again, I've learned a whole lot, and I know we've got some good feedback on Twitter that a lot of folks have gotten some really interesting ideas. And also thank you always to our program sponsor, M. Stoner, and we will see you all next time.
See you all.
Bye.